Hello, I'm here with the Dead Planet Surfers, and today we have a special interview because Paul is in France and Pete is in Australia. I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, United States. And for those of you watching, um, we're all in three extremely different time zones, and I want to thank you guys for showing up because it's quite a distance.
No problem.
Putting up Rome.
So, our first of all, tell me about the Dead Planet Surfers. And right now, I'll put in the link in the description, a link to your YouTube channel where people can see your demos and stuff like that. They can listen, and I found them very, very entertaining. Like I dug them,
No,
Thank you.
Well, I guess I can probably start. So the idea is the Dead Planet Surfers. They're a group of surfers that travel across the universe, seeking out waves on dead planets. So that's kind of the general premise behind the band. So yeah, look, as you were saying, we're in different time zones. So we're originally all from Melbourne, Australia. We all went to high school together. So Marcus, the drummer, Pete, myself. And then just over the last years, we've been sort of sharing riffs and sort of outlines to songs. And then it would have been in 2023, I came back to Melbourne for a year, and that's when we really started jamming and sort of putting the band together. We made a few demo recordings and stuff like that. That's the sort of stuff you can see on our YouTube channel. Yeah, and look, we played our first gig last year. The last time Pete and I saw each other was at the gig. So thanks for organising this, Ryan.
Oh yeah, totally. So it must be like a brotherly love, and that bond you developed young in your lives. It's quite. I don't know. It gives me like a good feeling that you guys remain so close and playing the music, and like how important to you that it's specific rather than playing with somebody where you're located. Like, why did you keep that connection all these years for music?
Do you want to go, Pete, or you got something to say on that?
I don't know. Like, I think everyone in the band would have maybe a slightly different answer, but for myself, it was a case of being able to play with someone like friends that we went to school sort of with. I've been playing music pretty much ever since I left school, but it's kind of been through other channels and through other, groups of friends, or even sometimes people I just met along the way. So to be able to play with a couple of friends I've known for a long time since nearly 30-something years, it's it was a nice opportunity, and I guess a chance also to be creative with a couple of people I've known for a long time.
Excellent, Paul. What would you say?
Yeah, look, I agree completely with Pete. Yeah, it's great. We all want to produce music and be creative, but it's also great just to hang out with your mates. So to be able to do both things at the same time, it is really nice. I guess also for me, because I don't see the guys as much being in France. It's nice when we catch up. We're jamming, like we're straight into it. Trying to organise stuff like that. So yeah, it's really good fun.
How often would you say you kind of get together virtually to talk about songs, or maybe just to catch up?
Yeah, a lot of the times it's through emails and texts and stuff like that, like WhatsApp. We might do the odd call here and there, but I try to get back to Australia as much as possible. It's pretty expensive though, so it's not as much as I would like. But like the last few years, I've been back every year, so we've been able to play which has been great.
Was it a culture shock to move to France?
Yes, well, definitely. But I've been here for like 15 years, or maybe even more. I've followed my wife here, so that's how I ended up here.
Happens to us all, I think.
Huh?
That happens to us all.
Yeah. We're sort of motivated by different things when we're younger, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
all right, so when they get to your YouTube channel, tell me what the viewers will be able to expect from the Dead Planet Surfers. Meaning, like, you know, your sound, what inspires the surf music. I mean, you know, I know that I like it. I like what I'm hearing, but I want you to describe your music. Paul, you start, and then Pete will have your take on it.
Yeah. So look, I don't think you could call us like a traditional surf band. That's not what our objective is. You know, I guess sort of you could say the framework is surf music. You know, reverb. You know, a lot of the rhythms and stuff like that are surf based. But I guess we kind of just let our influences come out. And like when we were younger, and even like to this day, our sort of influences are quite diverse. So I can remember in the 90s being into the whole grunge, alternative music. Then I've sort of dabbled in a little bit of jazz and funk and all sorts of music. And then I don't know how I got onto surf. I think it might have been Pulp Fiction back in the 90s that sort of...
Oh, yeah.
I think I always knew of surf, but I never really defined it as a genre. I think because it was, you know, you'd hear it in movies or even in cartoons for kids. There'd be like a bit of, you know, surf guitar or something when there's like a police chase or whatever it was. And it was probably Pulp Fiction that sort of, okay, that's what it is, Dick Dale, and, you know, I sort of became aware of the genre. And then, yeah, look, I've just sort of delved into it, so the different sort of waves and stuff like that. You know, the first wave, and then sort of what happened in the 70s and 80s, and all the modern stuff now. Like it's just crazy. Like there's so many bands. There's so much music. So
the hard thing is trying to connect everybody.
Well, and I think it's kind of good because there's different flavors. You know, like there's probably a lot of traditional stuff happening in California and elsewhere, but then every country's got its, you know, sort of style, and even within countries, everyone's got, you know, their own flavor as well. So I guess, yeah, to respond to your initial question, like we sort of try to, we've got that surf influence, but we're not limited to surf. Like if something else comes out, it comes out. It's all about making music for us.
Yeah. Pete?
Yeah, much the same. You know, like when I hear it and when I hear Paul's ideas and stuff, I hear it, obviously the main flavor is surf, but there's also a little bit of funk and things like that at times. Yeah, and I think too, sometimes the structures are like quite simple in a way that they could, you know, like there's a similarity to sort of some of the punk rock bands sort of I grew up listening to, with that whole sort of, you know, keeping it pretty simple of verse chorus bridge sort of thing, which is which I like, and I find that as I get older I kind of go back to a lot of that music because it is quite simple point and sort of you sort of meat and potatoes kind of thing. But yeah, I definitely think that there's, you know, everything that Paul mentioned before, and even like for me too, I hear a lot of that sort of score kind of music, like soundtracky type of music too, that, you know, where it's more about creating a mood as such. So there might, I think as time goes by, we'll probably write songs that probably do a bit of that or involve a bit of that type of songwriting. So yeah, that's definitely what I take.
More cloning, right?
Yeah, definitely. definitely.
What is very intriguing to me about Australia being that it's such a large place. You know, I from what I understand, because I interviewed a few different people from Australia, and I wonder what like the different regions are kind of like as far as the arts and music, and like what it's like as like a self-contained unit, and how influenced are you, in addition to that, your own music, and like how are you influenced by the rest of the world, and like what would you say is the heaviest influence, like worldwide?
I like Australia definitely has its own scenes and genres and things like that. It seems to be, I don't know, like as far as live music goes, sometimes Melbourne's always been pretty strong. Like where I'm from, it's always been a very good live scene, and I think certain places seem to, everywhere has its own thing happening all the time, but it seems to like ebb and flow. Like sometimes, and depending on the genre, there might be some really cool things happening somewhere, and then that dies out a bit, but then something else will sort of kick off as well. You're right. Australia is a very big place, and there's lots of space between it. So like, especially for bands coming out here from overseas, like it's not like other countries in the world where you can, you drive a couple of hours and there's a place to play. And sometimes like you'll leave Melbourne, you might get to Geelong, and then there's just nowhere really to play for quite, for hours and hours. So there's definitely it's definitely I guess a very broad and like a big place geographically speaking. But yeah, I don't know. I find that we are heavily influenced by the UK, sort of Europe and America, as far like North America and Canada as far as music goes. And with the internet, though, you can pretty much get access to music anywhere in the world. So sort of with all the sharing platforms, Bandcamp, Spotify, etc., there's sort of no shortage of influence from anywhere in the world. And you're like, I find myself finding new bands of different genres, every week, kind of thing. Like we're very fortunate in that regard now. Like, if you go back to the 90s, you had to be a lot more motivated and driven to find bands, because you're either read it in a magazine or you just went record store shopping. Like there weren't many places, you sort of had to be like motivated and sort of get out and go and look for it, whereas now you can be pretty lazy about it and just sort of sit and sort of scroll through on your phone and find music from really all over the world.
I'll just add to that though, it's great. Like it's great that you can access all this music and access it so easily, but I think sometimes a bit of it's been lost as well. Like you used to get recommendations from a friend and you'd sit around listening to the CD or whatever, for hours.
That
kind of sharing of music, like it's a different kind of sharing now, like sharing music, sending a link or something. Whereas back, say in the 90s, it was actually physically sharing. You would share a moment together. You would be listening to it. And you'd comment in real time, I love that guitar part, or I love, the drum fills or whatever. It's, I guess it still happens now, but it's
it was the same thing for me. If you were at, like in my younger days, my friends would all like have a party, and it was a very like, I don't know, it might have been 15, 20 people there that were always there. And we all liked different music, and somebody would bring a cassette in and we all listened to it. And like you said, there was that moment where you're all like, oh, no, 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 rewind that again, play that song. What was that, you know? And there was this conversation that it turned from playing poker or playing a dice game into, you know, like a music conversation. It was one of the great things I thought about my friend group, you know?
Yeah.
And there would be people that is all I would talk to them about. I'd start a conversation, and I'd start it by saying, oh, what are you listening to at the moment? And that's how you start the conversation, and you'd go on for you know, an hour or something or whatever. And that's what you talk about, and that's what you had in common with the person. But and look, it does exist still. Like, I don't want to say this kind of, you know, sharing of music doesn't exist anymore, but it's just different. I feel.
Yeah, I learned a lot. Like my son likes rap. And he made it a point to tell me that he's not really a fan of rock music. And I was like, well, at least you're calling it rap. You're not saying the hip hop, because hip hop is a much broader term than rap. So he likes Kendrick Lamar. So I was like, all right, I'll check him out. And I was like, okay, he passes my test. So the other day I was in the car and I looked at him dead in the eye and I said, you're not allowed to repeat this. And Daddy's not allowed to repeat it either, right? To anybody ever. Like, you know, the content, the lyrics, you know? So I put The Chronic on by Dr. Dre. And I was kind of looking out the side of my eye while we were in the car, and he's like, I'm like, it's good, right? And he's like, yeah. I said, you got to go back and listen to some of this stuff. And then my daughter, you know, she teaches me about, you know, artists like Lana Del Rey. So they're on, you know, completely different areas, but they also keep me in touch with, you know, stuff that's going on.
That's cool.
Yeah, my eldest is 12. I've got 2 boys, and yeah, we haven't yet had that music conversation. I still haven't got to that age.
It's quite intense. It's quite intense when you have that with a kid. All right, so the music, like, how did you find the music scene in France differed from Australia, being that it's much smaller and easier to get to the countries in Europe and actually do like some sort of, you know, like a tour? It's much easier to tour Europe than Australia. And like, what is the music scene influenced by there? Because obviously Australia has its own folk or traditional music, and France does as well. So could you like just give me your take on all that?
Yeah, look, it's pretty diverse. Where I am, so I'm sort of near Nice. I don't know if you know where that is. So sort of south east of France. It's quite a tourist kind of area, so like there's some great music. There's some great musicians. It tends to be, there's a lot of jazz, and a lot of cover bands. Like this probably happens almost anywhere in the world. Cover bands.
Oh yeah.
And so this, the catering to the tourist market. You know, people fly in for a week. They just want to hear songs that they know. And then they fly out, you know, to take a holiday, sort of thing. But there's a lot of jazz. There's a pretty good scene around Nice, jazz-wise. Rock-wise, it's hard for me because when you come from Melbourne, and like especially sort of growing up in Melbourne, there's like a really strong there was a really strong pub scene where you could go to any pub and there'd be a band playing on a Friday, Saturday night. And I'm not talking covers, I'm talking, you know, like original compositions. And yeah, I don't have that same culture here where I live in the southeast of France. It could be different in Paris and some of the bigger centres because it's not really a big population here. But a good thing about being in France and Europe is you get a lot more international acts visiting. Australia's kind of so far out of the way, you don't get, you know, all the international acts and like there's stuff happening like the last couple of years I've gone to, you probably know about the Surfer Joe festival. So I've gone to that the last couple of years, So that's about a 4-hour drive from here. So just being closer to, you know, all these things happening. So yeah. But it's hard for me to comment on the scene in France because I'm sure there's stuff happening in Paris and all over the place that I'm just not connected with. But yeah.
Well, I wanna thank you guys so much for showing up and making the effort to be here. I had I don't know if you can see it, my Mickey Mouse cup with my coffee.
I'm gonna go.
And I was gonna go back to bed, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I'm gonna get
it. Yeah, I'm too stoked now. Now that I've got to meet you guys, and you know, I saw how friendly you were. I'm like, oh man, you know, now I wish I could talk to more people all day long, you know. So I'll be going to a storage unit with my family today to go through some things. We just did a move and everything. So this is really, you know, 7 a.m. in the morning. This is the highlight of my day. Hopefully, the rest of it can compete, but I doubt it.
No, thank you for the opportunity to chat. Appreciate it, Ryan. We haven't really done much in the way of press and interviews or anything, so thanks a lot for the opportunity and your interest in our band.
Very interested, and I love the music. And like I say many times, if you wind up somehow on the show at all, it's because I love the music. You know, and I don't want to lie about how I feel about the band or the music. You know, so I'm going to be genuinely interested in what you're doing, and now that I find that you're great people, that just adds to it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Look, you know, as soon as we get an official release out, we'll be in contact, and you know, who knows, maybe we can talk again and go through it.
Yeah, you like reach out to me because I would love, you know, wherever you get it, as long as you can like send me the files, you know, like the raw files, and I can do a review of it, and you know, like the cover, and then I'll play the music in the background and talk about it, and you know, that kind of gives me and then, you know, I could talk about where people can pick it up, and I don't know if you've seen any of the reviews, but the reviews generally come from bands that I've had on the show, which, you know, kind of ties them all together.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Yeah, totally. So, all right, before we cut off, we have 5 minutes. And then, you know, Zoom just kind of shuts off. But it just give you a time limit, that's all. But the thing I wanted to know mostly is that if you could like spread the word about us, you know, Pi Records, as much as I spread the word about you, you know, I think we would both benefit from that, you know, because I will be, you know, when I share this stuff, I'll probably share it more on Instagram because that seems like where a lot of musicians kind of go do that. It's more versatile for musicians.
Definitely.
Yeah, so
I'll
share it.
I can remember, I think it was a couple of years ago you started this channel. I remember tuning in a couple of years ago. I'm not a big social media person, but I can remember a couple of years ago, and I'm pretty sure we're following you on YouTube.
2020 I started it. Yeah.
And I've caught a couple of your shows, and yeah, there's been some great stuff. So really, you're doing a great service to music and to this particular genre as well.
Yeah.
Thanks
you're welcome. When music has done so much for me in my life, I feel like I would be doing the artist a disservice by not offering something back.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is
Yeah.
awesome.
If I can't support financially, I can at least give my time.
No, it definitely makes an impact because I think people are always looking for new music, but sometimes they won't sort of search for it as such. So if they can actually tune into a show or an account or something where that account can show them new music and things like that, I think it helps a lot.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
As much as the algorithms are great and all that, I much prefer getting recommendations from a person.
Yeah, yeah, totally.